What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
AFC South Side. AFC South Side. Are you ready for the fight? Nighty night, lights out, no Tyson. About to be the clash of the Titans. Strike like a lightning bolt. You feel the ground pounding, that might be the coast. Quick like a joke, like to hit when provoked. Don't you doubt that. That's a Jaguar to a house cat. That's an outcast to a whole squadron. If you talking Houston, then we've got a problem. You'll probably get the horns if you mess with the cattle. Sit back in your saddle and get ready for the fan battle.
Really quickly, just don't forget to plug Sam loves Jalen Ramsey. All right, everybody, have a great night.
Can I just say, first of all, welcome to another episode of the AFC South Fan Battle Podcast. If I have to watch that clip of Derrick Henry stiff arming one of my players into oblivion one more time, I might just jump off a bridge.
Well, with all the complaints from Samantha about the whole Jalen Ramsey debacle, I'm gonna have to change it. So I'll update it for you. I'll have him step arm some Colts fans or something like that.
All right, yes, thank you. Please, because just anybody but the Jags. All right, so welcome everyone, everybody, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you are, we appreciate you tuning in to another episode of the AFC South Fan Battle Podcast. And today we are very excited to have with us a special guest from NFL.com, a fantasy football expert. Someone who actually knows about football and is smart instead of, the normal jabronis that you get on this show. Michael Florio, not to be confused with the person that no one likes, Mike Florio. So we're going to call him the good Mike Florio. Mr. Florio, we appreciate you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk some football with you guys. I am a Bills fan, so I do not have an allegiance to any team in the AFC South, which hopefully makes you guys like me a little bit more.
So how does it feel to be? How does it feel to be talking to the best Josh Allen?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sorry you have to deal with the subpar Josh Allen up there in Buffalo, but
I don't know. He is my favorite player in the league. No surprise there. And people often get annoyed at me because I like to defend Josh Allen, but I feel like the hate has gone too far in the other direction this year. So I've done a whole lot of defending him.
yeah, I mean, I don't hate the guy. Just my name being Josh Allen, I feel like I'm the better of the two Josh Allens. So
Do you own a Jags Josh Allen jersey?
Listen, I don't buy Jags jerseys. That's a long story we don't have time for. Anytime I've ever bought a Jags jersey, that player has then either been injured or been cut in that same season. So I will buy one maybe like after he doesn't play anymore. But the last jersey I bought was Tony Pashos, and he blew out his knee. I think in like the 09 or 010 season. And I said, never again, I'm not buying any more jerseys. So I before that, David Garrard, the year David Garrard got cut, I don't know if you guys remember that story. He's at like a luncheon to start off the season. And they're just like, hey, David Garrard, guess what? You don't work here anymore. And it was super weird and awkward for everyone. Literally like 2 days before my David Garrard jersey had come in the mail. So I wore a David Garrard jersey that whole season. So I don't buy jerseys with anyone's name on it. So no, I don't have a Josh Allen jersey. Also, if you've been to any Jags games, when Duval gets drunk and angry when the team's not good, I don't need those people knowing my real name. So it's sort of one of those things. All right. So Michael Florio, you work for NFL.com, fantasy football, and you're an NFL analyst. Tell us a little bit about what you do for NFL.com and what that's like. I'm always curious. Are you in like California? Like, cause I know they have like a big office out there near the Giant Stadium in LA. So tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so I work for NFL.com, NFL Network, anywhere NFL media. And yeah, I am in LA. I am originally from New York City, moved out here for the job. I took an off-air position a few years back at the NFL Network and was lucky enough to get opportunities on air. So now you could catch me in the fall anywhere you hear fantasy football talk on NFL media, it's probably myself or Marcus Grant, with a couple others sprinkled in. But yeah, NFL Fantasy Live on the network coming back next month. We still have the NFL Fantasy Football Show, our podcast that comes out weekly. We're going to be doing multiple a week very soon, going back to video format soon. Bunch of digital shows. I write the start of Sid'em. I also host a show for Rotoballer on SiriusXM. So if you want to hear me talk about fantasy football, there's no shortage of places you can go.
Hey, that's amazing. And joining Michael Florio, we have our normal panel of jabronis, starting off with our Texans fan, Matt Briggs, A1 Day 1 Texans, the shiniest head in the AFC
lead
South
jabroni, all right? I'm the
lead
lead
jabroni, head jabroni. No.
Yeah.
We also have our male cheerleader, Chase Shumway, relatively new to the show, but his mom on his first show outed him as a cheerleader. So that was an interesting experience. And we have Maximus, wishes he was Tom Brady, who is unfortunately a Titans fan, but we like him anyway. And then representing the reigning division champions, Matt G Sports, who is the host of the Jaguars Fan Battle on the network. So tell us a little bit. Let's, I guess, go team by team. Let's start with the worst team in the division, the Colts. Is there anybody worth drafting on your fantasy football team from the terrible team that plays in Indianapolis?
The Colts are probably my second favorite team in the division when it comes to fantasy players. Give me Anthony Richardson all day long. I think.
All right.
Yeah. Look, I don't care what he does. Justin Fields last year threw for 2,200 yards and 17 touchdowns and was a top 5 fantasy quarterback because of his rushing ability. So I think Anthony Richardson could do that. I love me some Jonathan Taylor. I will say I'm a little bit weary on Michael Pittman. I love him as a player, but he's going a little bit early for I don't know how the passing game will look early on. So because of that, though, if I take Richardson, I'll pair him with Alec Pierce a whole lot later. But I'm excited. I was a Anthony Richardson fan before the draft, and I was hoping he landed in Indy. So when that happened, I'm very excited to watch him play this year.
Yeah, and that's perplexing to me because as a Gator fan, I don't get it. I saw him play, and I don't understand what people are excited about. But you're not the only one who feels that way. I think, Chase, you feel similarly, right? You excited about the upside that Richardson brings.
Absolutely. I mean, look at when he was here at Lucas Oil Stadium, he's a freak of an athlete. It's like when Jim Irsay was on Pat McAfee's show, I'm like, he's going to have to play. The only way he can get better is if he plays. So I think he starts week 1 over Gardner.
Really?
He's better than Minshew already, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I think from an athletic standpoint, probably the question is he?
Because that shotgun and Gatorade bottles, it's Minshew all day. Like there's nobody better than Gardner.
Oh, Minshew, I miss him.
I guess I should ask you, Chase, how does it feel being in the AFC South when you guys are nowhere even close to the South?
When I was in high school, when all this stuff was going down and middle school, I'm like, hang on. Like we were in the AFC East before they made this division. We were always playing Tom Brady twice, playing Dan Marino. Like, how are we even? We're not even. They need to redo the divisions the right way.
Well, you got lucky and you had to play the worst division, so you got blessed, all right? We, on the other hand, got screwed.
We had Peyton Manning and he destroyed the AFC South.
We got screwed and had to pay Manning.
Yeah.
I just want to take a quick moment to point out that the last time that the Colts won a Super Bowl, the iPhone wasn't even a thing. That's just how long that's been. So before that comes up, before anyone says something about the Colts have won a Super Bowl, no other teams in the division have, I just want to say that was pre-iPhone. So just stop, Colts fans. All right, so that's interesting. I think a lot of people feel that way. So let's go to the second worst team in the division, old shiny heads, Texans. As much as I wish that were the case, that's not true, Matthew. So people are very big on CJ Stroud. I jokingly say I don't understand why, because he went to Ohio State and those quarterbacks never pan out in the league. But I think it's almost undeniable at this point. I don't see a way in which CJ Stroud does not start week 1. I can't imagine a scenario that makes any sense. So how do you feel? Where would you draft CJ Stroud if you were drafting him for your fantasy team?
He's purely a late round dart throw. Someone that I would take if I'm playing in like a best ball or 2 quarterback format. But in your regular home league where you start one quarterback, I don't think you even need to draft him. I could see him going undrafted. That being said, though, I do think there's some upside here. It's just a matter of which CJ Stroud are we going to get. And that's purely as a runner. As a passer, I think CJ Stroud was the safest bet of every quarterback coming into this draft class. I think he is safer than Young and Richardson. I think the other two have higher ceilings than he does. Right. But as a pure pocket passer, there is not a throw he cannot make. The placement, I've started diving into drafts the last 3 years or so, heavily. He is the best placement passer that I have scouted coming into the NFL. So I'm really excited about that. But for fantasy, we need numbers, right? And I don't know how much numbers the Texans offense led by a rookie quarterback is going to put up this year. So the only way I could see CJ Stroud being really fantasy relevant is if he runs more like he did against Georgia, which was really the only game in college he decided to run.
Yeah, he doesn't have that same sort of dual threat capability that Richardson does in terms of throwing. Richardson's almost the opposite, right? You know he's going to run and he's effective at doing that, but the question is he going to be an NFL a successful passer in the NFL where Stroud is? Everybody's pretty sure that eventually he'll put up numbers in the air, but the question is, while he gets his feet under him, is he going to be able to put up any numbers running? All right, who else? I like Dameon Pierce, even though he cheats, and I think he puts Crisco on his jersey, especially during that Jags game they played here in Jacksonville. I think there's no way a normal human being can break tackles the way that man does. Obviously, they got Dameon Pierce. Is there anybody else? What's your outlook in general, I guess, on the Texans as far as fantasy football goes?
It's a lot of flyer types. I like Nico Collins a lot. I think the third-year wide receiver could potentially break out. I've been picking him to lead this team in touchdowns for years now, and maybe this is finally the year he's going.
Third time's the charm, Mike. Third time's the charm. Yeah.
I thought his rookie year for sure he would do so, and nope. But I think someone who's being slept on right now is Dalton Schultz.
Yes, that's what.
He is not okay. He's not going to be Travis Kelce or anything like that, but he doesn't have to be. He's getting drafted as the tight end 14 right now, and I'm he's probably going to lead this team in receiving. I think that's what he was brought in to be that safety blanket, the target over the middle, the short, quick option for CJ Stroud. You talk about the placement; he just has to get the ball into his hands, and then Schultz could do some damage after the catch. I think he can have a similar production-wise to what he's been doing in Dallas, just because of volume alone there in Houston. But you're the Houston expert. They have so many wide receivers right now, outside of Nico Collins.
Right? Yeah, you just don't know what's going to happen.
None of them have been standing out.
Tank Dell. A lot of people was loving Tank Dell, but Mechie's still hurt from the knee. And also recovering from cancer, so I'm glad to see him back on the field. But yeah, there's a lot of question marks because they're so young. Like you said, Nico Collins right now is really the only kind of bright spot. But and Amari Rodgers, I guess, is having a great camp. But hopefully we're not talking he's the number 2. If we are, and we're in serious trouble. But I agree with you. I think Dalton Schultz. Any tight end in the Mike Shanahan type offense that Bobby Sloak is going to be running is going to be catching touchdowns and yardage. So I honestly think Dalton Schultz will be top 10 tight end in this year because of the offense. So I have to agree with you.
Love it.
Sweet. Yeah. So, all right. Now moving on to the team that I hate the most in the world, literally the football team that I cannot stand, the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, Derrick Henry, I'll ask your thoughts on Derrick Henry. Some people say that he's not going to have a big year, that he's over and done with because he's getting up there in age. But obviously, your thoughts on Derrick Henry, and then is anybody else worth a hill of beans on the Titans? From a fantasy perspective, obviously, not as human beings. But.
I for years in fantasy football have been the low guy on Derrick Henry because I was he doesn't catch enough passes. Yes, I understand he can run for 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns, but if his rushing numbers at all take a hit, where's that production going to come when you're paying for top 3 pick? So I was always the one kind of fading him. Now he's going as the RB9, barely as a second-round pick. Sometimes you even get him in the third round. Sign me up all day because I get it. 29 years old, 1,900 carries in his career. I went and, NFL Research Department also helped in this. We went and we looked at the running backs who've had those numbers, 29 or older and at least 1,900 career carries, who have then gone on to still put up like RB1 production. And there's some great names, like all-time greats. But Derrick Henry himself is an all-time great, and Derrick Henry has the fewest amount of touches of any of those running backs. So I think he can once again be a top 10 running back. That's not even me bringing up the fact that last year he had a career high targets, catches, and receiving yards while earning a career high yards per route ran. If Derrick Henry can give us anywhere close to Derrick Henry production on the ground, plus it's like a happy learn to putt moment and he can start catching passes, forget about it.
Yeah, I'm surprised to hear that he has the lowest out of that sort of group that you talked about there, because it seems like 3 out of every 4 plays they're just handing the ball to Derrick Henry, and a lot of times rightfully so, right? Like I can't count on 2 hands the amount of times that he has just run the Jaguars into the ground single-handedly. So.
The caveat is this is in history, so a lot of it is like Barry Sanders, Curtis Martin, Tiki Barber, but the recent ones are like AP, LaShawn McCoy. The only difference is like McCoy's was a little bit more in the passing game, whereas Henry is just a bulldozer.
Henry does seem like the type who is very much, he seems almost Tom Brady-esque in terms of the way he trains in the off season, and he's very meticulous about like staying in shape and taking care of his body. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. I hope he has, I don't wish him not having success. I just hope that his success doesn't help his team win, right? Like, I don't care if he rushes for 3,000 yards. If the Titans go, 4-13 and he has 3,000 yards, then good for him. Congrats, Derrick Henry, right? So, is there anybody else though? Like people, obviously it looks more and more every day like Ryan Tannehill is going to be the starter, right? And Ryan Tannehill is okay. Like but he doesn't seem like obviously he's not a fantasy football quarterback that I think anybody would get excited to have on their roster. You got Cheeseburger Burks, who, I've seen a lot of Titans fans posting shirtless pictures of him as though that's supposed to prove that he is, going to be better this year. But I don't know. I can't think of anybody, and I am obviously not a fantasy football expert, but I can't think of any other players that I'm excited to draft onto a fantasy football team from the Titans, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
The only other one is Chigakonkwo, the tight end. I'll
right.
take him over, because I think him and Trey Burks, I'm not saying he's better than Trey Burks, but I think they have similar skill sets. And the thing is, to be a fantasy relevant tight end, you got to average like 9 points a week. To be a receiver that you want to use each week, we're talking about you want to get like 12, 13, more than that. So the bar is a lot higher to be a wide receiver that you use each week, which is why I haven't drafted really much of Treylon Burks anywhere. I like Burks as a player. I think he gets a little overhyped in the comparisons to A.J. Brown. Look, nothing against Trey Burks. There's one A.J. Brown. But with Okonkwo, he got more and more volume as the year went on. He is an amazing after the catch weapon, so I could really see him being utilized in that area a whole lot. But, and I'm sorry to say this to you Titan fans listening, I think the range of outcomes for the Titans is that they are one of the worst offenses in football this year. I could see them quickly deciding to pull the plug on Tannehill and seeing what they have in Will Levis. And I wasn't a huge supporter of his coming out of college. So, and by the way, they're saying Malik Willis is outplaying him right now. And if that is true, that is a scary sight.
Well, wouldn't you hope that Malik Willis is outplaying him though, with having a year, how many years is Willis is second or third year in the league? I forget when he was drafted. You would hope he plays a little better than a rookie. But the problem is that where they drafted Will Levis is going to sort of demand him to be better than probably what he is, right? It's a mess over there in Tennessee, and I'll just be honest, I love to see it. It makes my heart happy every time I see the dysfunction that they have going on over there. All right, so now let's get to the one team that everybody cares about, right? The one good team in the division, the defending division champions, led by Sir Trevor Lawrence, the first of his name, soon to be NFL MVP. So that I think is a good question, right? Because fans of the AFC South teams have gone back and forth ever since the end of this past season. You know, everybody who's not a Jags fan says that Lawrence is overhyped. Obviously, Jags fans disagree. From a fantasy football standpoint, what's your take on Trevor Lawrence?
I love Trevor Lawrence, and I'm not saying anything groundbreaking here. I loved him since he's been in college. And for fantasy purposes, I think that he is one of the top 8 quarterbacks, and my strategy this year is to leave my drafts preferably with one of the top 8. So I actually have because he goes 8th, I have a decent amount of Trevor Lawrence already. And I'm not telling you he's going to be the MVP because that's going to be Josh Allen, but our Josh Allen, not your guys' Josh Allen. But I have been very vocal saying that I think Trevor Lawrence will be an MVP candidate this year, like a finalist. Like I think at NFL honors, he could be one of the names that we are talking about as one of the candidates. And the whole reason is, one, throw away his rookie year. Like, no one has ever been put in a worse situation before than he was in. 2, with Doug Peterson, as the year went on, he looked more and more comfortable, and clearly was a good pocket passing quarterback, got the most out of his weapons there. Then you add in a Calvin Ridley, who I think for fantasy purposes brings league winning upside. He is someone that I am targeting heavy as a wide receiver 2 right now. But then for fantasy purposes, I think Trevor Lawrence is underrated as a runner. Yeah, he's never going to give you the numbers that like a Lamar Jackson is going to, but he could give you 400-500 rushing yards, potentially, maybe a little bit less, maybe 300 to 400 is more in fair, but he's going to give you like 5+ rushing touchdowns. And that was what I loved about him coming out of college for fantasy. Was I watched every single snap of his, and I was in college, and I was like, this kid is amazing near the goal line at selling the fake handoff and just rolling out. And he's also pretty big himself, so if he just wants to lower his shoulder and go, he can do so. So the Jags I know they're getting hyped up, and I'm one of the people that is hyping them all up because I'm very excited about what that offense could be the second year with this Lawrence and Peterson connection.
Yeah, I think what's weird is Trevor Lawrence is deceptively not large looking on TV. And then the first time I saw him at like training camp at a practice, I was like, oh my God, he's massive. Like, you know, he's just a big, tall, you know, he doesn't look that way. He looks very sort of like thin and spindly on TV. He doesn't look like he's sturdy, which was one of the weird, like I had no data to back it up. But when we drafted the guy, I'm like, I don't know, man. Like he looks like his legs could break easy. But when you see him in person, he doesn't look that way at all. So Evan Ingram, I'm curious. Everyone is hyping up. What's the name of Matt Briggs? What's the name of that tight end that you guys signed? Yeah, Schultz. Everyone is hyping up Dalton Schultz and saying that he's instantly the best tight end in the division. What are your thoughts on Evan Ingram versus Dalton Schultz from a fantasy perspective?
I have Evan Ingram ranked higher. So for me at tight end, I think there's a big 7, and Evan Ingram is my tight end 8. So I think right after the elites at the position, and the elites being, you know, you have Kelsey, you have Mark Andrews, Waller, Pitts, Goddard, TJ Hawkinson. You could put that group in any order you want, but after you get through those 7, I think there is a fall off at the position. But the reason I have Evan Ingram 8 is, one, I believe in his talent. Like I've always thought, going back to his days with the Giants, that he's a capable tight end. He just wasn't in offenses that were able to take advantage of that. But when it comes to tight ends at that late in the draft, like I have Ingram, David Njoku's one I like a lot, and then I have Dalton Schultz because you want volume. And I think Schultz volume right now is safer to project than Evan Ingram just because there's a lot of mouths to feed in Jacksonville. But at the same point in time, I think they'll have longer drives. I think they'll score more. And typically when teams score more, you see the tight end getting involved in that, especially in the red zone. So Evan Ingram got hot at the end of last year and won a lot of people leagues. And while I think he might be inconsistent some weeks, ultimately, I just feel much better about the Jaguars offense and the Texans. No offense to Dalton Schultz. He's just a rookie quarterback, not as much pieces around him. So because of that, I'm going to go with the guy in the better offense.
All right, and just quickly, then I want to let these guys ask you some questions. Calvin Ridley, in general, do you think he still has it? Do you think he's I think I don't know. I think he's going to have a good year. What that means in terms of his performance this year versus previous years, I don't know. But I think he's still a good wide receiver. But I'm curious to know your thoughts.
I love Calvin Ridley. He is one of my guys for this year. And I've been in on him since they traded for him last year. I was like, this kid with Trevor Lawrence next year is going to be amazing. And the thing is, like, I know Christian Kirk had a great year, but if you compare their stats year by year, Calvin Ridley is the much better receiver. He has multiple seasons where he's earned a better next gen stats rating than Christian Kirk did last year in his best season. So, think of everything Christian Kirk did last year and how good he was for fantasy. And now imagine if a even more explosive, better receiver was out there. And for the people saying the suspension thing, and I know Deshaun Watson struggling last year really scared people off with suspensions. To me, there's a big difference when you're coming in the final 6 weeks of a season in an offense that has been beat up and wasn't designed for you. Then if you missed all, to me, I'm treating last year like he missed it due to injury or something like that, except for he's not actually hurt. Right. So I'm very bullish on Calvin Ridley, and he said he could give you guys 1,300 yards, I think, in his Player Tribune article. Let's try to get that number even a little bit higher.
Hey, I'm for it. The more the merrier in terms of yards from Calvin Ridley. And I wonder too if Ridley will open up opportunities for Kirk and the other receivers, right? Because they're gonna if Ridley has the year that a lot of people think he's gonna have, then he's gonna draw attention from defenses, which then should open up some opportunities for the other guys to make a splash in games. But we don't know for sure. We'll see. But all right. So Matt Briggs, what questions do you have for Mr. Florio?
Well, before I ask my question, I will ask a question from the group. Cody Blankenship. He said, Bills fan, have you ever go through a table?
Not yet. So I have made this promise, though. I told everyone at the start of last season I had picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl. And I said, if they do, I will jump through a table on camera on our show.
There you go.
And the Bills didn't come through last season. So right now, you could schedule it like late February of 2024. You'll see me jump through a table.
All right. Well, here's my question. You're in a movie, cars exploding, explosions everywhere, and you had to have like a walk off, like a music behind you. What song is playing?
That's pressure. That's harder than a football question, Matt.
That is the hardest question I'm going to be asked all day. I always know, like, for walk up, like, if I was I played baseball my whole life. Like, The Spins by Mac Miller would be my walk-up song. Nice. But that is not a good song for that scenario.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I truly do not have an answer. I will have one for you, but off the top of my head, I cannot. I'm a big hip-hop guy. Maybe some Biggie or Jay-Z or something like that I could see.
I know if you're from Tennessee, it'd probably be Dueling Banjos. But
I'm not a country guy.
Can you confirm, Max? Can you tell us?
That it's not far off, man. No.
All right. So since I'm making fun of him, all right, Max. Go ahead and pick Mr. Florio's brain.
All right. I got two questions. One, I think a lot of people are underrating the Titans defense. I use them a lot of times as my pickup defense. I don't carry two defenses on my fantasy squad. So when I need another defense, usually I just go and find another defense that I can just plug in immediately. And they're usually on the waiver wire, and they usually produce decently as far as the points go. But with Harold Landry back this year, creating that much more sacks, that much more turnovers, do you think that maybe they're a little underrated? And if we do sign DeAndre Hopkins, does that make another fantasy player?
Yes, it definitely would. And for the defense, I don't. You guys lost a lot of talent from last season, so I could see them. Look, Mike Vrabel. That's the thing. I say it's in the realm of possibility for this Titans team to be struggling pretty badly, but Mike Vrabel always gets the most out of his team. So I would not be surprised at all if the Titans end up being a really useful fantasy defense. I just pulled up their schedule. They get the Saints week 1. Typically, what I like to do with my defense is find one that I really like to match up in week 1, and then, like you said, you kind of stream after that. I don't know if that's my favorite. I haven't fully dove into the week 1 schedules yet, but I don't know if that would be my favorite matchup, but it's certainly one that's in play because Derek Carr, we know, can implode at a moment's notice. And then for DeAndre Hopkins, I'm really hoping that he plays opposite of this guy right here. But if he's signed with the Titans, yeah, he's 100% fantasy relevant. And I was reminded today, though, of the long line of receivers who have gone to Tennessee for their careers to kind of end. And I do not want that to happen to D-Hop. So how would you feel, though? How do you think D-Hop would be in that offense?
Honestly, I think DeAndre would break that streak. I think that's why I want him signed. I think the most is because I want to stop that streak of having great receivers come here and then just stop. There's a long list.
Randy Moss, Andre. I forgot Andre. I truly
Johnson.
Forgot Andre Johnson was a Titan.
It goes all the way back to Swaim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a big Julio guy when he went to you guys that year.
I thought him and AJ Brown were just going to be electric. And
yeah, I mean, you can add AJ Brown to that list too. Trade him away for Peanut.
Yeah. That guy's a pretty good wide receiver. Why don't the Titans try to sign him? Oh wait,
previous GM problems,
right?
Just pouring salt on the wound.
Did you have another question, Max? I forget if you said you did.
No, that was it, man. That's what I had.
Sweet.
All right. Right now, the favorites to get D-Hop. Last I saw.
Yes, we are the Vegas favorites. Yep.
Went from plus 500 to minus 300. So
yeah, they're working on getting him an endorsement with Hellman's mayonnaise. So
anything we can do, man. Anything. We're doing everything, throwing it all at him.
Yeah, I'm a Dukes man myself, but it is what it is. So, all right, Mr. Shumway.
All right. Well, I'm glad we finally got a rookie quarterback. It's been years. We needed to get out of the veteran mindset with Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz. Thank you for letting Frank Reich go. But if the Colts this year tank again or win only like 4 or 5 games, this fan base will go crazy. Do you think Chris Ballard's job is on the line?
I don't think it should be, because I think a season like that should kind of be the expectation when you're it's not like you're going into a season, because I was talking about this earlier today on our podcast, the fantasy football show. Every quarterback the Colts have taken in the first round since Peyton Luck has played the entire season. The difference is Andrew Luck was the best prospect. We said, Trevor Lawrence was the best since Andrew Luck. He clears all of these guys, Andrew Luck. So he was able to come in and make you guys competitive right away. Anthony Richardson is the exact opposite. You're hoping that Richardson can get you guys to those heights. And but he's raw. Like, I love the coach hiring that you guys brought in. I think it's the perfect pairing. I think you want to see this through for 2 or 3 seasons. See if you can get Richardson to take that next step. Because Bills fan here, Josh Allen was pretty brutal his rookie year. Outside of throwing the ball deep and running, he didn't do a whole lot well.
Yeah, there were people calling for him to not start the next. Like, there was crazy people saying that, like, oh, we've made a terrible mistake here. And yeah, I remember that. Sorry.
There was people after year 2 saying that, and those are people who didn't watch, because Allen took a lot of steps. He was still raw and inconsistent. Took a lot of steps, and that's what I want to see out of Anthony Richardson, right? Like, I don't want to see him play like Andrew Luck right away, because I know he can't, and that shouldn't be the expectation. The expectation should be this is a season where we are going to give this kid as much snaps and as much time to learn as possible. And yeah, maybe if he has a Malik Willis type showing where you're like, this guy can't even read a defense, and I keep throwing fun at Malik Willis. I was a huge supporter of his. I thought he was worth the gamble. I still think he is if you can give him time to kind of develop, but a quarterback like that, and as young as Richardson is, you need to be in the long term here. So, because then once you fire the GM, then you start talking about maybe the coach, and that's terrible for a young quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think maybe it depends on how the season goes too. If they get a hot hand, come out, win 4 or 5 games early, and just skid through the rest of the season, I think some of that, whether Ballard is on the hot seat, will depend on how
I'm
it played
guessing-
out, right? Yeah,
I'm
where
guessing
if they,
you do. I was just gonna say I have a question for Chase.
all right.
I'm guessing you do because I remember where I was. Do you remember where you were the day Andrew Luck retired?
Yes, I do.
In the corner crying.
Actually,
You're
no,
gonna
I
make
was-
Chase cry, Michael.
I
Florio.
was
You can't
on
do
my
that.
National Guard orders that day. We were actually getting ready to get on a C-130 and get ready to jump out of a plane, and then my phone starts blowing up, and then it's like, Shumway, you see your phone? Like, what do you mean? Andrew Luck's retired. He's like, bull crap. And there goes my phone. I'm like, you got it. And I was actually supposed to. They were going to let me off a drill early that day to act because I got tickets to go to that game. I'm like, I don't know if I would have been one of those fans booing or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was tough.
I don't remember where I was, but I remember checking the spelling of all the Twitter handles very carefully when I saw the news because I didn't believe it. I was like, no way. I was like, there's no way. So I was like, oh, is this one of those like, where there's an L instead of an I in somebody's name and just everybody's getting bamboozled. But yeah, it was crazy. There was an article that came out either last year or the year before that really sort of had an in-depth interview with him. And like why he decided to retire. And honestly, I can't blame him. Like, all the money in the world, he's looking at all the injuries people are having. He was going through so much physical pain, and then he just realized that, like, there's just no, he would have a better life overall by not playing anymore than continuing to play. It's like, all right, man.
Yeah, Zach Kiefer had a good 6-episode podcast on that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But
all right.
Since we brought up Luck, I have a question for you.
All right.
Would you put Andrew Luck in the Hall of Fame with his numbers?
I don't.
Or even in the Colts Ring of Honor?
Colts Ring of Honor, yes. NFL Hall of Fame, no. Because he played, I just pulled it up right now. So 6 seasons? Yeah, I mean, his numbers, it's crazy. Because like, if you compare them to quarterbacks from like 10 years earlier, like he meets their career numbers. But I think Ring of Honor for sure. I mean, you guys already have that second place AFC banner up. Might as well take it home.
Look, you're fitting in perfect, Mike.
Oh man,
Fitting in perfect.
Yeah. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. He's very good, obviously very excellent, but I just think his short career is what's going to hurt him. Especially when you start looking at the numbers from like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, these guys that are going to play for a long time. His numbers look good for the amount of time he played, but overall, it's going to sort of pale in comparison to some of those other guys. Yeah. All right, so saving the best for last once again, I'm going to give Matt G Sports, our Jaguars fan, the honor of asking you the last couple of questions here. All right, Matt.
All right, buckle up. So I think with the combination of Doug Peterson, we have some continuity there going into second year in the same offense. With the combination of a stellar wide receiving core along with our running back core, I think we're going to put up some crazy numbers on offense this year. I think, Doug Peterson sets up the run with the pass, right? So we're going to see a lot of passing yards, I think, this year. With that being said, fantasylife.com, I don't know, maybe you frequent it, but they had put out an article where they went over fantasy's best wide receiver duos for this upcoming year. And they listed off some duos that they think has the potential to produce 2 or multiple top 24 wide receivers as far as PPR goes. And this is what they think they'll do. And they listed off a couple of them. Obviously, the Bengals with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Miami, Philadelphia, Seahawks. And the Jaguars were there with Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think the Jaguars have the potential to produce 2 top 24 wide receivers in a PPR setting? There's only one ball, and there's a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball for the Jaguars. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I certainly think it's possible, especially because the way that their top 2 players produce. Like, Calvin Ridley is one of the best field stretchers in the league, and he's also a really good red zone presence. Those are the 2 best ways for a receiver to score fan. Because think about it, 1 50-yard catch and a touchdown that's equivalent to, in a PPR league, that's 12 points right there. That's equivalent to like 5 catches for 70 yards. It's just a lot easier to have success when you have those big chunk plays and you can score touchdowns. And Christian Kirk, while he's not, in my opinion, the field stretcher or the receiver that Calvin Ridley is, he is also a very good field stretcher and can win downfield. And not as good in the red zone, I would say, as Calvin Ridley, but I don't have them ranked both as top 24. I have Ridley in my top 20, even in my top 15. I have Kirk just outside my top 24, but I continue to say, like, I think he's a good fallback wide receiver 3 in fantasy purposes. I just don't think I want them on the same team. You know, whereas, like, if I had Chase and Higgins, I'm okay with it. I like having these guys a little bit because I could see it being a week-to-week kind of thing with Christian Kirk.
Okay.
Well, the Jaguars' offense is great, but their defense is not there. So, I mean, there can be a lot of close games where Trevor Lawrence is throwing the ball a lot. So that could help those two guys get the yardage and catches they need. So,
yeah,
big possibility.
I think the way the draft went and the way the teams have set up their teams, I think this next year teams are winning with the offense. The years of winning championships with defenses, in my opinion, it's long gone. But then my second question, my second question is on the scale of worst moves of all time in the NFL history, trading away AJ Brown, where does that fall?
Pretty high. Pretty high. I mean, you get rid of him the next year he's playing in the Super Bowl. Arguably should have won a Super Bowl. Like, I don't want to take shots here, but
no, you're good, man.
That's the one that they want back.
It's the truth.
Real quick. Now, knowing now that we know now, which one was worse, Hopkins or AJ Brown?
What, like getting rid of them?
Yeah, which trade was worse?
AJ Brown.
Yeah.
AJ Brown because he was younger and all he wanted was to get paid, and like every other receiver that was his age and was eligible to get money got around the same amount of money that he ultimately signed for with Philly. And what I think the NFL has proven to us in the last couple of years is that wide receivers are no one's as important as a quarterback, but wide receivers are not far behind that. And you see it happen yearly where a team goes out and gets a young quarterback, a big new piece. I like to say it started with the Bills and and getting Stephon Diggs a few years ago, but it's really worked out for a lot of these teams. And no offense to the Titans, I think we're sitting here talking differently about their offense if they still have AJ Brown.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
So even though it was a bad thing to do, I'm glad they did it. Right, it makes me happy that they traded him away.
So
all right.
But can I ask all of you guys a question? You can all answer at once.
Absolutely.
Who's going to win the division this year?
The Jaguars,
hands
down.
America's County, Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, America's team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, not those bums.
London's
out in Dallas.
team.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah.
Daytona International Speedway.
I think Maximus is the only one that thinks that the Titans is going to win. Everybody else, I think Chase is agreed with us. It's the Jags. I mean,
it's the Jags.
I hate to say this
in London.
They play 2 games, do they not?
Who?
Yeah.
No, but the Bills and Jags get one.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's be Josh Allen Bowl 2, and hopefully it won't be a 9-3 score. Hopefully it'll be
which I'm not trying to make it look. You guys kicked our ass that game, but for this one, I'm seeing people say it's an advantage for the Bills, and I don't understand how.
I don't think so.
You guys are already going to be in London for a week, adjusted to the time, and while it's a Bills home game, let's be honest, it's going to be a Jags home game.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's I don't know. So we've talked to some UK fans over there, and let me just say, I know you work for the league and their website, so I'm not expecting you to go too far in the commentary here. But from what we have been told by people on the ground there, the level of following the Jaguars have in London is different than the league paints it, right? So they're like, yeah, people will just sort of like they'll root for any team that shows up, but you know, which I get, like, you know, it's kind of like when Premier League teams come to the United States, right? There's a lot of people that just like soccer and they'll go watch it regardless of who's playing. But you know, I do think it's an advantage for the Jags. They've done it every year. They've been over there, so they're in a rhythm. They know what to do. They know how to be successful and be prepared. And they're going to have, like you said, they're going to have been there for 2 weeks. And I think, since we know that is technically, as far as the schedule is concerned, the Bills' home game, I think it's an advantage for the Jags because they don't have to go to Buffalo and play in Buffalo, right? Like you're not going, whether it's a Jags home game or not, you're not going to have 70,000 Bills fans screaming their head off because they're just not that many people are going to make the flight. There'll be some Bills fans there. I'm sure they'll be a little bit loud. But it's not going to be the same environment it would be if that game was played in Buffalo. How much of an advantage is it? Who knows, right? Like, we'll see. But I think it does give a slight advantage to the Jags. And as far as their chances this year, I think that's the measurement of success. Your first goal should be to win the division and get in the playoffs. Your secondary goal, if you can't achieve that, is just get in the playoffs. I think anything less than that for the Jaguars this year is a failure, right? It's a step backwards, and so we'll see what happens. But we appreciate your time, Michael Florio. Definitely have enjoyed your insights. What's the best way, your preferred way for people to consume more of your content if they want it? Where would you prefer them to go?
Twitter. It's kind of the one-stop shop where I post, because I do a lot for NFL, but I also do some stuff elsewhere like Rotoball or SiriusXM. So you kind of could keep up to date with everything over on Twitter, and right there you see the handle on the screen. Thank you for that. At Michael F. Florio. I tell people the F is for fantasy. It's really not, but hey, it works. So.
All right. Well, we appreciate you. All right. So we'll just sort of bounce everybody out here. So we'll start with Maximus. Maximus is the host of the Titans fan battle on the network. So where can they find your content, Maximus?
You can find me on Twitter and on Facebook and on TikTok.
All right. Chase, where can people find you if they want more from you?
I am on Facebook and I'm also on Twitter.
All right. Mr. Briggs, Shiny Head Texans fan.
Yeah, you can find me on the Texans fan battle, where we usually record tonight, but we have a special guest tomorrow, and we wanted to celebrate National Houston Day. So we will be recording tomorrow. Hey,
713 day.
713, baby. So check us out there, and you can follow me personally, A1 Day One Texans, everywhere, Threads, whatever the new app is,
whatever it is, that's where
it is. So.
All right, and you can find me on Twitter. Josh Gives Up. Matthew Greaves, sir. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Matthew G Sports on all of the socials except Threads. I haven't taken the time to set that up, but
you're not missing much. It kind of sucks so far.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, Mr. Florio, we appreciate you. Thank you for obviously the rest of our panelists being on the show. We appreciate anybody watching out there. And last thing to say is that Sam loves Jalen Ramsey.
Very much so.